It's that time. Your fix is here. College football is a year-round discussion with these two. Here's JC and Morgan. Mike Morgan of ESPN and JC Shurburtt of 24/7 Sports have you covered. Beginning right now.
Oh, we don't waste any time. It is December the 3rd. It is Selection Sunday, a term that was used for decades and is used in college basketball. And since we got into this college football playoff, now, 10 years old, it's a term we use for college football as well. And the similarities might not stop there. More on that in a moment. This is a special, I guess you could say, a special Sunday installment. We normally do the show live every Monday morning. As it turns out, I've got a physical tomorrow morning, so that wasn't going to work. Plus, JC, I like the idea of coming in red hot. We are 30 minutes away from the selection committee show. Now, we don't know exactly when they're going to announce the four. My guess, they're not going to drag it out an hour because they got to do the New Year's Six and all the other bowl games. But it'll happen while we're live on this show. So we got a lot of things to get to, including the JC5. He is JC Shurburtt, coming to you live from Chi-Town. I am Mike Morgan here in the mecca of college football and the mecca of another epic conference championship game, the only one, and I watched every bit of them. I watched all five. Washington, Oregon was pretty entertaining. Other than Alabama, Georgia yesterday, the other ones were duds. It was tough to watch. I really struggled, quite honestly, going back and forth between Big Ten, ACC. But yeah, I am, from Brookhaven to the Dome, depending on Atlanta traffic, that could be anywhere from 25 minutes to an hour and a half, as people know about Atlanta traffic. But I'm about between 18, 20 miles, I think, if I went ahead and map quested it or whatever else people do these days, Google directions. Yeah. And I could feel the vibe. I mean, Atlanta is just, it turns into, this is like the college football, again, I'll use the term mecca during that week specifically. Alabama, Georgia fans all over the place. And again, this is probably the most diverse in terms of fan bases because not everybody here is a Georgia fan. That's a real misnomer. There's a ton of fans of other SEC and ACC schools for that matter. So you can always check out the website, jcandmorgan.com. You can email us on the mailbag. We've got some of those. You can check us out on social media. I already sent out a tweet this morning in response to and I don't normally respond to other people's things, and especially, there's only a few people's opinions in college football that I truly respect, honestly. I don't know Nicole Auerbach. She does fine work. I hear her on the radio every now and then, but you guys can check it out at Morgan on Air. I basically retweeted something that she said about the SEC and how the SEC is in freak-out mode, and now you know what every other Power 5 conference has dealt with. Well, the SEC is not every other Power 5 conference, and even in a quote-unquote down year, you don't need to judge. Nobody cares about how good Vanderbilt was compared to whoever. Nobody cares about how bad Mississippi State was or Florida. You judge from the top down, not the bottom up, and Alabama and Georgia are clearly in a different classification. If you watch the championship games, I mean, my goodness, if you watched Louisville last night, it's hard to believe they won games. Credit to Jeff Brom because he does not have a very good quarterback. He's a brilliant offensive play caller, but that was just hard to watch. And then Iowa, whose punter has over 4,000 yards. That's my favorite stat of the day, JC. Their punter has more than 4,000 yards this season. Never seen anything like it. But they're a joke. The over-under on points for Iowa in the first half was 2.5. And if you would have said the under, you would have won that bet. So you just – and then you watch Georgia, Alabama, and I hate the term eye test like anybody else does, but damn it, if you – you have to just see that is a different level of football than every other thing you witnessed.
You're not
kidding.
Just have to. It was noticeable. It was noticeable. I mean, that's like, you're like, man, these guys are all fast. They're big. They will hit you. They're physical, both sides of the ball. I mean, I wouldn't. I got almost uncomfortable watching Georgia and Bama run power plays yesterday because, dude, I don't know that I would have wanted to run up in there. I don't know that I wanted to. I would have wanted to go in there and tackle whoever's running the ball.
The sheer violence in that game,
man,
it's unprecedented.
Speed,
you and I have been on. You and I have been to that game.
Oh yeah,
and I that watching it on TV, I don't know if it does it complete justice. Go to one of those games when it's Georgia, Alabama, and it's just a different deal. Now, Michigan, Ohio State comes close. Don't get me wrong. It's not like this is not an SEC elitist thing. And by the way, on that subject, we've been doing this now 7 years, and I've said this countless times, and I'll say it again because I know we pick up new listeners and viewers every week, and I know background matters to a lot of people because college football is the most paranoid, sometimes insecure fan base, and I love it. I say that glowingly. It's part of the beauty of the sport. Everybody thinks that everybody's out to get one another. Everybody thinks that this guy is biased and that everybody's got an agenda. And I won't lose any sleep over what the committee selects today. I really won't. We'll get to more on who I think should go and who shouldn't. And JC will give his four, and then we'll announce the four. But if you're not going to get a just visceral, emotional, crazy response either way. I'm not going to lose an ounce of sleep over it. Yes, it's true. JC and I both have SEC backgrounds. We're both SEC graduates. We both cover the sport nationally, but also certainly very. I mean, look, I call SEC games for a living and have for a long, long time. That doesn't mean I've said many times I didn't want the Pac-12 to close down because I think we need geographical balance in the sport. I didn't want Jim Harbaugh to get fired because I thought Jim Harbaugh was going to help elevate Michigan to a power, and he has. I looked forward to the Michigan-Ohio State game. I told you it'd be a record number. It was 19 million. It was one of the highest rated games in the history of college football, certainly in the modern era. I don't want to see the ACC fall apart, even though you constantly have Florida State and Clemson playing footsies under the table with other leagues out there. So I don't pull for the demise of any other league, any other team. I love college football first and foremost. So let me just throw that right out there, okay? That being said, there's so much just crap that gets flown out from people that, quite honestly, I don't have a ton of respect for. I mean, people that have not covered the sport very long, or they've been elevated into high positions because of other reasons other than the quality of their work. You get it. You know the deal. There's a number of things that are going to go into this decision, but let me just say a couple things real quick, and I know we're going to be pressed for time today. It's amazing. We only have a few things to get to, yet we're going to be pressed for time. That's the beauty, again, of college football. Something's going to happen today. Think of this. The committee has never done the following. We're in the 10th year of this playoff. Thankfully, it'll be 12 next year. And it would have been 12 this year if it wasn't for the ACC, the Big Ten, and the PAC. Remember that little alliance that they did? We would have had 12 this year. The committee has never left the SEC champion out of the playoff. That's a possibility. The committee has never left an undefeated Power 5 team out of the playoff. That's a possibility. The committee has never dropped the number one team outside the top four. That's a possibility. The committee has never selected a team ranked outside the top six. That's a possibility. So we're going to see an unprecedented deal happen in a matter of a half hour or so. It's going to be this was their nightmare scenario, and part of me, who always loves some chaos, I can't help, for years and years, as we suffered through 20 years of the BCS, I rooted for chaos because I wanted people to understand we need a playoff, a true playoff. And, the John Saunders of the world, the late John Saunders, again, very talented, but he would always say, well, one will play two, so it worked out. No, it didn't work out several times. Just because an arbitrary computer or system of computers says one play two, it doesn't work out. This is the closest thing we've had to another BC mess since this thing got started, because we've had very minimal controversy. But we talked about it last week. If Bama beat Georgia, this was going to be a show, and it is. There's just no way to get this right. There's just no way to get this 100% right. In terms of what I think can and should happen, first off, and this should, again, prove once again a lack of bias in any way. I don't think you can put Bama in over Texas. I don't think that game matters. I don't want to hear it was early. I don't want to. Texas will be in and deserves to be in. So the matter to me is not Bama versus Texas. It's clearly, at this point, it is a Bama FSU decision for number 4. Would you agree with that, JC? Do you think I'm missing something? That's just my opinion. Are you thinking Georgia?
If Georgia's out. If Georgia's out. Okay.
Well, yeah, and I'm not saying.
I mean, but I think they are. So
I don't think Georgia's getting in
because they're
one of the
top 4 teams. But yeah,
you know what's killing Georgia? I'll tell you what's killing Georgia. Beside the fact that clearly Ladd McConkey is not healthy, and for that matter, Brock Bowers is not healthy. Mm-hmm. And if we're going to penalize Florida State for not having their starting quarterback, then maybe Georgia can be penalized for not having 2 of their top playmakers. There's no question. McConkey's not even close to 100%. I mean, I don't even know, like the commentators, and by the way, hats off to CBS for 24 great years, and I know a lot of people hate Gary Danielson. You might miss him because Gary Danielson's actually pretty damn good at what he does. Is he annoying at times? I get it, but from my vantage point of what you want from an analyst, he's the one that was all over that controversial call, by the way, when a lot of analysts would have sat back and not even said anything about it. And Nessler, who we've had on the show, is one of the best to ever do it. But the one thing they kept talking about is maybe it'd be better to just not even play McConkey and Bowers. That your 5-star kids on the bench might be a better option because they're clearly not 100%, and they weren't. Now, McConkey could barely move at times. But the other thing that stands out with Georgia is they were supposed to play at Oklahoma week 2. Remember that? Mm-hmm. They went ahead and took it off the board because of the new schedule. They couldn't squeeze a return game in. Well, yeah. Well, then why did Bama play Texas? Because that was the return game, right? So that's the difference. So those 2 things really change the epicenter of what we're talking about. If Georgia beats Oklahoma, who beat Texas, now Georgia's got a really strong case, even after a tough loss to Bama in the final week of the season. But without it, I don't see Georgia sneaking in with this committee. I don't see it. I think it comes down to Bama FSU.
Yeah, and it's an interesting call between those 2 teams. I think it's tough because, look, Florida State obviously did not have the strength of schedule that Bama did. They won all their games. I mean, you're not talking about a program that's scared to play anybody either. They scheduled LSU and Florida in the non-conference. Those games were away from Doak Campbell Stadium. They weren't at home. One was neutral site and one was in Gainesville. And I know Florida was not great and LSU was a little disappointing, but they still won, right? So they took care of business. Now, honestly, their best win was at Clemson. Clemson was, besides LSU, their best win was at Clemson. Mm-hmm. 8-4 football team. Ended up pretty good. Winning at Clemson's not easy, but, is that better than winning at A&M, winning at Auburn, winning in the SEC championship game? I mean, that's, Bama probably has a lot more quality wins to kind of showcase. They do have the loss. And so it's going to be interesting. People are going to be disappointed either way. And like, not just all shucks, we should have made it disappointing. Because you're talking about big brands and big. I mean, the worst thing that's happened with this thing, Mike, was the first year when Baylor and TCU tied for the Big 12 title, and it knocked them both out, right? Mm-hmm. And if that were Texas and Oklahoma that year, I'm still convinced Ohio State doesn't get in and doesn't win at all. Because of the brands. So that's been like the worst thing that's happened. I mean, I could make a big case against Notre Dame a few years ago when they were undefeated and played a lot of named teams, but they were all 5-7 that year. Southern Cal, right. Florida State, Virginia Tech, etc. But this is going to be this cuts to the heart of the perpetual debate in our sport with SEC versus everyone else. Is there favoritism? Is there a league that's more deserving? Does it matter? Do all these things matter? Because what the committee's decision is going to come down to, Mike, is something's all of a sudden not going to matter as much as it has.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's head-to-head, whether that's being undefeated, whether that's having a conference championship, whether that's the eyeball test, whatever. Personally, if conference championships and undefeated seasons were not valued like they are, and I do agree they should be valued, to me, the top 4 teams in the country are Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, and Michigan in no particular order.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're all better than Texas right now. They weren't better. Bama certainly wasn't better than Texas in week 2, but I think they're better right now. Even over Washington, who I really enjoy watching play football. I just, these teams have just kind of knocked each other out. But that's not going to happen. They're not going to do that. I think that would be kind of wild. And I think you would see maybe a push for the Big Ten and SEC to form a super conference, and everybody else will be like, see you, we're going to go do our own thing, if that happened. But it's just interesting because this is the time where this is one time, Mike, where someone that's like super duper in any other season, they'd be a lock. They're not going to get in.
There's no question. There's going to be at least one of those that fit that qualification. By the way, on Chat Row, for those watching on YouTube, Darth Vader, my background is not East Carolina. It's Dana Dykhouse Stadium in Brookings, South Dakota, home of the number 1 seed Jackrabbits, who have advanced to the Final Four. They'll take on Nova. That stadium, by the way, seats 19,000, opened in 2016 for a cool $65 million.
There's a little something about the Jackrabbits and the JC5 today.
Okay, we'll get to that. We'll certainly get to that.
Something about the Jackrabbits, yeah.
All right, let me make the this might be an unpopular thing, and I really don't care. But here's the thing. By the way, here's a strong number I heard earlier today. Georgia, the last 3 years, 1-2 versus Alabama, 40-0 against the world. That is a strong number. 40-0 against everybody not named Alabama and Nick Saban the last 3 years.
How about that, man?
I've said this before. God willing, you and I are going to live a long, healthy life. I don't think we'll ever see another team win 29 consecutive in the SEC. So, it's kind of buried in everything right now that they won't have a chance to tie Minnesota, the 1930s Minnesota Golden Gophers three-peat.
Gophers.
And they also won't get a chance to tack on to that record that broke the Bears record. And, again, I don't think we'll see it again in our
That's
lifetime.
Major League Baseball early exit from playoff level painful, too. And when I sit there and put myself in Georgia fans' shoes, which many of them also are Braves fans, I feel their pain.
Yeah.
I really, really do, because that's tough, dude. It's hard to win in this sport at all, much less 29 in a row.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
29 in a row in the toughest league in America.
It really is. And you look at some of the wins during that stretch. It's crazy good. And again, I don't think we're going to see Georgia's not going anywhere, but you're not going to see 29 in a row from anybody in the SEC. I don't think in our lifetime. Okay, so let me.
We've lived that and the Bama dynasty, Mike.
That's right.
I don't think we'll see something like Bama happen either.
No. What Nick Saban is no. I don't think we're going to see that either. Which is evidence of what I was talking about at the top, that I don't think the SEC is just going to run roughshod over college football with the 12-team playoff. I think the Big Ten is going to have something to say about that. I think eventually a team out west will emerge, whether that's Southern Cal or not. Who the heck knows? And Florida State is clearly on their way up. I told you, Florida State was going to be a legit contender this year. I had them in the Cheez-It Bowl against Oklahoma last year, and I was like, okay, it's a Cheez-It Bowl. But I saw Jordan Travis up close. I saw Jared Verse, who decided to come back for another year when he would have been a first-round pick, up close. They're legit. And Mike Norvell, remember now, there are a lot of people that wanted Dion, including Dion, to take that job. This just in, you got the right coach, and he's done a hell of a job taking over the mess from Willie Taggart and putting Florida State back on a championship-level match. Now that I've said all that, Florida State fans, let the hate begin, because here are some of the things I'm going to bring up to make the case of who that fourth team is going to be. Florida State, as you mentioned, JC, I don't care about SEC versus ACC. I don't care that Wake Forest beat Vanderbilt. None of that really matters. Nobody in the ACC beat Georgia or Alabama. Nobody from the SEC beat Florida State. And yes, FSU beat LSU. LSU can't defend anybody. That doesn't impress me. Yes, FSU beat Florida. Florida, it might be the worst defense in the SEC. And again, with a backup quarterback, in fairness, but they trailed Florida 12-0 and won it 15-12. When Travis was healthy, they trailed Duke at the half 2017. Riley Leonard goes down. They wind up winning 38-20. And you mentioned the Clemson game. There's nothing else to hang your hat on. It really, it's just a bunch of mediocre to disappointing teams in the ACC that Florida State beat. But here's the bigger point. The language of who gets in the Final Four, it does not say best four resumes. It says best four teams. Let me repeat that. It does not say best four resumes. It says best four teams. Now, I realize that there's a lot of subjectivity that goes into that, and we hate subjectivity. But when you have to go to this type of means to get a fourth team in, there's no way to avoid a level of subjectivity. You cannot ignore Jordan Travis being out. This is a Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback. And so you have to there's precedent here, albeit in another sport, but as I mentioned, it's Selection Sunday. And we now use a committee. These are all things that we've been doing in basketball for a half a century, if not more. And if you follow college basketball at all, you know that when a team has one of its top players out, they get dinged in the seating. It happens because the committee, human beings, realize that's a factor. JC, what's the most important position on the college football field, bar none? Is it tight end? Is it strong safety? What is it?
Offensive guard. Just kidding. It's quarterback. You know
it's
that, buddy.
Quarterback. I know you know it.
I would be dumb to even if I felt it was another position. I'd be dumb to get in that debate with you, man. You're Mr. Quarterback.
I mean,
but yeah, that's a Captain Obvious answer.
It's Captain Obvious, and Jordan Travis is the equivalent of a college basketball team's leading scorer and leading assist man. Okay, you can name a guy that's helped propel a team to the national championship and was the face of a basketball team. That's Jordan Travis and then some. This is not, we don't have a Cardell Jones 2014 Ohio State situation brewing here. You just don't. You just don't. So I hear some people this morning like, well, it doesn't matter. 13-0 is 13-0. The hell it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to you. It matters in terms of the language, which is the best four teams. And Florida State, without Jordan Travis, is not one of the best four teams. You saw them struggle that game last night against Louisville. My goodness. I mean, they're just struggling to move the football. They got 16 points. So, again, if you're going on the language, and this will be unprecedented, the committee just likes to make it easy. Well, let's just take the Power 5 teams that have 0 next to the loss column. This is a special situation. And if you want to say that Alabama, the way they're playing with Jalen Milroe versus a Florida State team without Jordan Travis, that's not an apples-to-apples comparison. Now, do I think the committee will have the gumption to do it? I don't know. I looked at the names of that committee. I mean, I took a deep dive, JC, on that committee. Oh, my goodness. Wow. It's everything you would expect from an organization like this, right? So you got one SEC guy in Mitch Barnhart, and, of course, Boo Corrigan, bless his heart, goes on TV and tries to talk about the committee every week. The AD of NC State. Mitch Barnhart's the AD of Kentucky. And then I had to look up some of these guys. Kelly Whiteside. Kelly Whiteside's a reporter who I've never heard of. I'm sure she does great work somewhere. Joe Taylor. Joe Taylor was a former football player. Will Shields, a former football player. I know who he is. Let's see. What do we got on Gene Taylor? Mean Gene Taylor. He was the AD for Iowa. He's currently the AD of Kansas State. I must admit, I did. So it's clear you try to get an AD of all the Power 5 conferences. Rod West? Who is Rod West? You can look this up, by the way, folks. collegefootballplayoff.com. They've got beautiful photographs of all 13 of these individuals.
Will Shields.
Owns
and operates a gymnasium and sports facility in Overland Park, Kansas.
Well, clearly he'd be qualified then. I'm sure he's been breaking down tape all year long. Rod West
the NCAA
is the group
used to be there, right?
Yeah.
In Overland Park? God almighty.
Rod West is the group president, utility operations for Entergy Corporation. What the hell is that? He serves as the Hesburgh trustee at the University of Notre Dame. He's got a master's in Tulane. Okay, that's one of the people with a vote. So I say all that. Ward Manuel of Michigan, David Saylor. Who's David Saylor? I'm sure this is a great family man.
Miami, Ohio, AD.
Okay.
And shout out to the Red Hawks for winning.
Shout out to the Red Hawks, yes.
Winning the MAC yesterday.
Yeah. Now, Jim Grobe.
Jim Grobe, hey.
You got my respect. Chris Alt, Nevada fame,
Hell yeah.
the pistol originator. You got my respect. But there's some names on here that are clearly.
Chet. They put Chet Glagchuck on the freaking committee?
Yes!
He's the dude that fired Ken Tuliololo on the field. And I mean, he's
you got to.
dude.
If you folks want to laugh, just look at the 13 people that they selected. So
I should have looked at that. We would have had some more fun.
Well,
with this, had I actually looked at it before now, Mike.
I didn't think to look at it because I didn't. First off, really, they haven't had the pressure in 10 years to make this kind of decision. There really hasn't been a whole lot of decisions of major consequence. There's been a little bit like number 4 versus number 5. Nothing to the level of this. Absolutely nothing. And these are the 13 people. Like it's typical of life in general. You make hires because you think it's going to look good on the pamphlet or whatever the case may be, and you figure, well, as long as they don't have to make a major decision, nobody will notice. And then all of a sudden you got to make a major decision, and it's like, what? These are the best we could come up with? That's the best they came up with. That being said, if they actually, if the wiser voices in that room have everything that, even if they don't come up with the 4 that I agree with, everything I'm talking about should be said in that room. The language is the best 4 teams. You have to consider, just like they do in the college basketball committee room, when a team is without a major player, there is no bigger major player than a quarterback. And we're not talking about like a game manager in Jordan Travis. We're talking about one of the best players in college football. And clearly they're not the same team. You've seen it with your own eyes. So if you want to take Florida State over Alabama just because, well, they got 0 losses and Alabama's got 1, be my guest, but you're not picking the best 4 teams. You're just not.
Agreed. I mean, but I don't know, man. I do think history tells us that we have never let go of this notion that an undefeated season trumps all.
Correct.
In college football, and I'll use that Notre Dame example.
That goes back to the BCS for that matter.
They're a shoo-in. Really? Who have they beat? They beat an average Michigan team at the beginning of the year. Only ranked win they had. And but there was never any doubt that they would get in. None. So I just don't know. I think gosh. And the thing of it is, Mike, one of the teams that is going to get left out, or two of them probably perfectly capable of winning the whole thing.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah. Does anybody believe Florida State's defense is magnificent? I've already praised Mike Norvell. I think Florida State is back. They're one of those volcano programs I talk about that they're not going anywhere. This is not a blip. Their recruiting is going to remain strong. They got the right coach in place. I'm just telling you that this year they're not capable of winning the playoff without Jordan Travis. And Alabama is more than capable of winning it with Jalen Milroe. Advantage tied. So I don't mean to boil it down to that simple, but for me, it kind of is. And I hate it for Florida State. I said on this show when Jordan Travis went down, I hated to see that. I don't want that to happen to anybody. But it did happen. and it is a reality. And they're clearly not they've had multiple opportunities to show how they would look without him, and it ain't even close. And they played two beyond mediocre teams. With all due respect to Louisville, you watch them against a really good defense. They don't have much of a they're not that good. And Florida didn't defend anybody all year in the SEC. So that's all I can say on that. We'll see as it happens live. It's going to happen hopefully in the next few minutes. We'll see. With that being said, why don't we get a break in? We'll get into the JC5, and then as the moment that the committee makes a decision, we'll be on and we'll react to it. It is JC and Morgan on a Selection Sunday. Back after a quick timeout.
Down here in the South, we don't always see eye to eye. While our taste in college football teams, or what sauce, if any, goes best on a rack of ribs, or what to mix with our Dixie vodka might be up for debate, we can all agree there's nothing better than a Southern tailgate. And like our favorite college teams, our ingredients come from small towns and big cities. They're grown in Southern soil, are crafted by Southern hands, and proudly represent the South in our backyard and beyond. So raise a glass of Dixie Southern Vodka to celebrate being made in America and raised in the South.
Hey, folks, want to tell you about our friends at Titan Construction Group really quick. They're a Mid-Atlantic-based general contractor, specializes in retail, restaurant, and office construction. TCG strives to separate itself from other general contractors by adding value every step of the process. From project budgeting to estimation, value engineering to construction, they focus on those relationships and not the transaction. Titan builds partnerships one project at a time. Among their clients are Starbucks, Crumble Cookie, Blake Pizza, Home Goods, 15 plus years experience, based in Midlothian, Virginia, and contracted in Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So get on their website, TitanCGinc.com. That's TitanCGinc.com. Get in touch with Brad if you're in need of a general contractor that focuses on going above and beyond for their clients. That's Titan Construction Group, a proud sponsor of the JC and Morgan podcast.
South Carolinians, this message is for you, as well as for people in Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee. If you think you may need work done to your roof or a new roof altogether, there's one simple name to remember: Elite Roofing and Restoration. South Carolina native Jeremy Johnson has been helping people in the South make sure they have the very best people checking on and building new roofs for over 25 years. Fully licensed, bonded, and insured, they provide the best service possible. Call or email today, 678-781-1998. That's 678-781-1998, or you can go to EliteRoofingGA.com. Schedule a no-hassle, free inspection today. Wind damage, hail damage, or just wear and tear. Don't settle for second best. Let Jeremy Johnson and Elite Roofing and Restoration take care of it all for you today.
All right, back with you here on JC and Morgan. JC Shurburtt, Mike Morgan with you. And again, as always, we are presented in part by Elite Roofing and Jeremy Johnson for all your roofing needs, whether you're in Georgia, whether you're in South Carolina, Florida, Tennessee. Jeremy Johnson and Elite Roofing will take good care of you, as they have with me a couple of times. We all need to get a new roof at some point or another, right? He's got more than 25 years of experience in both roofing, and I will add construction and home repairs. They do it all at Elite Roofing and Restoration. Schedule a no-hassle free inspection today. You can go to the website, or you can email them, eliteroofingandrestoration@gmail.com. Set up an appointment for a free appraisal. You'll be glad that you did. Also knows how to deal with those insurance companies that somehow forget power up their coverage at times when you actually need them.
I've been through that with my in-laws.
You've been through that too?
We went through that with the roof and the insurance and all that happiness. And it's,
oh, yeah. All of a sudden, there's a lot of fine print. But and that's where you need somebody you know that knows how to deal with them when they try to bully you and not pay. And nobody bullies Jeremy Johnson. They're not bullying him. 678-781-1998, the phone number, 678-781-1998. All right, so the Talking Heads, I've got ESPN on now. The Talking Heads are on, and I don't know how long they're going to drag this out. They got to wait till the committee comes out of the room. Again, we talked to you about the 13 individuals, very few coaches on this committee.
Very few.
just a random
But
collage of people.
I talk to a lot of coaches, though, man, and let's just say you ask 5 of them one thing, and they all have a different opinion on something. They're just as opinionated as we are. But
Agreed.
I would rather it be in the hands of those guys
people who cover the sport
than the dude that owns a gym in Overland Park, Kansas. He's making gains, He's
in the squat. He's on the squat rack. He's like,
he's trying to throw you the super
FSU.
diamond member. He's hitting you up to try to get the personal training every year. We work with one of our trainers or the 1999
tried the smoothie bar,
gold.
brother. It's some good
gold.
stuff.
It's great stuff. Just got it in. Or the gold package that includes the tanning.
Got to get the gold package. Yeah, I
Got
brought
to
the
get the
massage
tanning
chair.
bag. Our tanning bags and massage chairs to go $19.99 instead of $11.
You
That'll
sign
hook
up
you
now. 20% off of Andro and creatine. Right at you, brother.
Yeah.
Come on. Who's with me?
Let's go. The power. I need to get my ass back in the gym. I'm sitting there trashing it, but I'm like, man, I miss those days, Mike.
We could do a whole show on meathead etiquette at like an LA Fitness of the guys that don't re-rack the weights, that sweat all over the bench and don't wipe down. That sit. I sat there once waiting for a guy to get off the incline bench, and he's sitting there with a friggin' Bluetooth in his ear and having a work call as he's in between sets. And I'm just looking at him like, you think you might want to take that call somewhere else and give up the bet? No.
I turned my phone completely off. I got my music going, and
that's the way it should be.
And I know the exact LA Fitness you're talking about, dude. And that's you got to hit it at the right time, because if you don't,
it's meathead central.
Some days I'd walk in and walk right back out.
Yeah,
I'd walk right back out if it was a certain. But sometimes it's not crowded and it's really, really nice. But
yeah.
They need to advertise with us, because that membership stuff. It's LA Fitness. You have to cancel your membership by writing them a letter in Los Angeles
really?
to Los Angeles. Yeah, dude. I'm trying to get out of that. There's none. The closest one to me is like 30 minutes away. So it comes out like the first of the month. So I never notice it, and I'm like, damn. There's another $34 they got from me.
We need to put them on call here on the Consumer Report. We'll make sure you get your money on that. I promise you.
Write a letter? Are you kidding me?
Right. Please
Dear
let me out of this
LA
terrible
Fitness.
toxic relationship.
Dear Los
I don't want to be a
Angeles
part of your gym anymore.
And you actually have to mail it to LA. That's the address.
That's fantastic.
Anyway, but
all right,
yeah.
JC5. Let's get into it before they actually announce the playoff 4. It's the JC5 right now. Again, nothing's happened yet. They got like 6 reporters at the 6 different programs waiting to see their fate. So this could drag for a while. Let's get into the JC5.
It's time for the top topics in the sport. We bring the JC5. Number 1.
All right, so reports out of New Orleans and Houston say Willie Fritz, the Tulane Green Wave head coach, is going to take over the Cougars. My take, Mike, it's a heck of a pickup. I think when we think of great Houston teams through the years, it's usually line it up, throw it all over the field. It's not necessarily what Fritz does. He kind of runs a creative offense that's based on option ball, special prep on both sides. I think going into the Big 12, that's what Houston needs to do. They probably need to be a little different than everybody else to win in that league. And Willie, that's all he's done is win everywhere. So I think that's a heck of a hire. That maybe there's not trumpets and Nick Saban kissing going on when he's hired, but I think that's a heck of a hire for Houston.
Totally agree. I think somebody should have hired Willie Fritz a while ago. Other than he's in his 60s, somehow that makes you be qualified less. I don't know. That's been the only thing that I can think of that has held him back, because clearly he's done one of the best coaching jobs. This is not a 1-year blip on the radar. This is several years now at Tulane, which is not an easy job to win at. Good chance they'll be in the New Year's 6, right? Or is it Liberty? Who we leaning toward?
They
there?
lost. Tulane lost yesterday to.
Oh, that's right. They did lose.
SMU.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
it'll be Liberty, SMU.
Maybe they're a little distracted.
Liberty, SMU, maybe Miami, Ohio.
I gotta think it's undefeated Liberty.
After yeah, you'd think that, but you know what Liberty's strength of schedule is? 133 out of 133.
Yeah, they play in Conference USA, which might be the worst league with the MAC.
However, I mean, I think you want to go by the eyeball test and all that. I think they're the best team, but
yeah,
because I watched them rough up my Aggies of New Mexico State. But that's the second most dramatic pick today after the top four is that nobody really knows who the hell the group of five guy is going to be. So.
That's true, yeah. But no, to go back, I think Willie Fritz certainly deserves a job like that. We talked about Houston and that job last week. It's a weird deal because it doesn't have some of the, let's just say, ambiance of the Texas schools in terms of support and crowds and everything else. It's a commuter school, just a different vibe when you go out there and take in a game. But they're in the Big 12 now. They should be able to get better athletes. And for whatever reason, the Holgorsen situation, minus one breakout year, it just never popped. It just never did. So I'm all in favor of Willie Fritz getting another opportunity.
Absolutely. And the 60-year-old thing, man, people got to realize this. It's nice to dream if you hire a guy in his 40s that he'll be here 20 years.
Right. But never happens.
We all know that rarely happens, right?
Yeah.
So.
And how many people thought Nick Saban would still be doing what he's doing in his early to mid 70s? If you love what you do and you stay in good health and you're effective, then he could do that job for a minimum of a decade. So
I also think he's kind of an alien because, like, I watched the South Florida game this year and he looked like he'd aged 10 years. Now he looks like he's gotten younger.
the
Number two.
Okay, so I've always had this theory, Mike, and my UNLV Rebels had a bad loss yesterday in the Mountain West title game at home. But I've had this theory, so I'm going to run it by you. And they lost to Boise State pretty bad. A 7-5 Boise State team that fired its coach this year. Right? A school that is a have will sometimes, even in a bad year, beat an upstart, no matter what. And I'm thinking of some of those years that kind of mediocre Florida teams would beat LSU, and before LSU really got it rolling, I guess it was 2007 when they won it. Florida actually went over there and beat them. I'm thinking of Southern Cal under Lane Kiffin, 8-5 team going and knocking Oregon from the ranks of the unbeaten. And then that was an example yesterday. Boise's a program that's been there, done that. UNLV is a have-not, having a great year, an upstart, and they got smacked down. What say you?
I think there's something to that. I mean, those kids go in that locker room, that weight room every day, and they see all the big upset wins that Boise State had over the years, whether it was Oklahoma, whether it was Georgia. Really just a phenomenal run that Boise State had. I don't think they're ever getting back to that point, but in terms of a matchup like this, even if they were the worst team all year long of the two, it's woven into the culture, and you feel some of that. It's like just a little extra sense of, we do belong. Yeah, we should be winning this game. Why? Because of the history. So I think there's no question that can have an advantage, whether you're a Boise State or if you're a blue blood having a bad year, but all of a sudden you beat other teams because, again, it's woven into the culture. History does matter. Doesn't always prevail, but I think it could certainly help you in a matchup like that. Number three.
Okay. Another thing I love is sweet goodbyes. It doesn't happen in this sport too often. I mean, that's the reason I was pulling for Brett Favre. I've never been a Vikings fan at all, but when he was playing for him, I was really pulling for him, and they lost to the Saints and cost him a shot at the Super Bowl. I pulled for the Wizards under Michael Jordan when Michael Jordan was there. I love to see the great ones go out on top, and I love to see sweet goodbyes. Okay, so in college football this year, we had 3 sweet goodbyes. And it's crazy because, Mike, we're never going to be able to say this again. And we talk about our lifetimes and stuff. Let me back up. We're probably never going to be able to say this again. Where 3 conference champions are leaving their league on top.
Yeah.
Texas, SMU, and Washington all will be in new leagues next year. They won the American, the Big 12, and that's Texas. I think is only one. The whole time they're in that league, they only won 4. This is their 4th, I think. So Texas, SMU, and the UW Huskies leaving and taking the trophy with them.
Yeah. By the way, that Pac game, 9 million was the highest rated Pac-12 championship game. I mean, talk about just a kick in the crotch on the way out. You have the best year you've had, best quarterbacks, best teams, best competition, highest rated championship game, and now the whole thing is about to implode. It really already has imploded. It's just officially going to implode. I don't know, pick a day. Have they started packing boxes? Has Klyavkov packed up his boxes yet? What the hell does that guy do?
Where is Larry Scott? What's he doing right now?
Like, Larry Scott and Klyavkov should be like sentenced to college football purgatory. They should have to do community service for every Pac fan for the next 10 years since they combined to help destroy that league and make it a relic. The way of the dodo and the dinosaur and the T-Rex and everything else.
Larry Scott is a partner in a gymnasium in Overland Park, Kansas.
He'll give you 35% off the tanning package if you sign up today, 10% off smoothies, and free access to the massage chair.
Global Gym. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
Spin till you bleed. We could do a whole thing on gyms, can't we? It's bittersweet to see all this. You know, the Big 12 is going to be fine. It's going to be. I think unlike the other commissioners in the Pac, they have made all the right moves. Considering they couldn't stop Texas and Oklahoma wanting to go to the SEC and going to the SEC. They already bent over backwards to do that before. It doesn't work. You know, it's just like a relationship. When she wants out, you got to let her out. You can't just sit. But I'll give you flowers every week. No, just let her go. Let her go. And so that's the difference there. I think that the Big 12 will be in good shape, but the Pac story to me. We're gonna look back at that years from now and just go, how the hell did they let that happen? How in the hell did they let that happen? But they did. They did, and then the vultures came in and gobbled up every team out there with the exception of Washington State and Oregon State, who obviously are going to that's going to be a de facto merger with the Mountain West, and that's going to be your new Pac, if you want to call it that. But, bittersweet for sure.
Number 4.
Okay, so question. All right, so there's 2 parts to this. It involves FCS football. Because I'm looking at the playoffs, and, I'm pulling for Furman. I'll just be honest. I'm a homer. And if not, the Jackrabbits are my second favorite team because I, too, have Jackrabbits gear because of their basketball team. The wife and I do.
You've got Jackrabbits gear?
Yes. I bought it off Amazon last year before the NCAA tournament.
Oh, shoot.
It's awesome, too.
That's very awesome.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there scratching my head because I'm like, the epicenter of power in FCS football is like in the high plains and eastern Rockies, like Montana-ish, Idaho-ish, over to the Dakotas.
That's
How
right.
in the hell does that happen?
You've got South Dakota State, South Dakota, and North Dakota are 3 of the Final 4, along with Villanova. To your point,
and then North Dakota State's like the Ohio, it's like the Michigan of the. Or they were like the Alabama of FCS for a long time.
Right.
So how do you get good at football in the Dakotas? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. So that's the first part of it is the epicenter's there. Why is the epicenter there? Because every good FCS team in the South jumps to the freaking Sun Belt.
That's right.
As fast as they can.
That's right.
or whatever. And so there's no real teams in the South anymore. But, my question is, as we talk about rebuilding the Pac, because – it does seem like there's a lot of schools interested in making the jump to FCS. Would the Dakotas be a place would Montana be a place to expand if you're looking to create a great Western Conference? Montana used to be in the Pac-12 in the 40s and not anymore, obviously. But those states are growing population-wise. So
Yeah.
would that be something that you could see happening down the road, since every other, great program in FCS seems to have those ambitions to jump?
That's interesting. And as you can see in the background, I've got the South Dakota State Stadium, and again, it only seats 19,000. That might be one thing holding those teams off as facilities. As we're talking, JC, they are announcing the playoff. Okay,
All right,
number one seed is Michigan. No surprise, right? 13-0. Been there, done that. They did what they had. They didn't have the toughest schedule, and the Big Ten is awfully top-heavy. But they deserve it. They won what they needed to win. They survived 6 games with their head coach suspended, and Jim Harbaugh is a happy man. We've been very pro Harbaugh on this show, and a lot of people, quite frankly, wanted him fired. So Michigan is number one. I'm guessing Washington is going to be 2. I mean, these are pretty much the no-brainers, right?
Washington is
and there it is. Washington's 2 at 13-0. So everything that we already knew going in has happened. Now we can't wait for 3 and 4. Oh, my goodness. 4 is just going to be I mean, you can't even underestimate how many people are going to be pissed off after 4 is announced, no matter where it goes, no matter which way it goes. It's I'm actually excited.
I'm sitting with bated breath.
With bated breath.
Well, well, good. I'm glad Michigan's 1 and Washington's 2, because the Rose Bowl doesn't get their precious little Pac-12 Big Ten matchup. Screw those guys.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, I'm anti-Rose Bowl because they've screwed college football, and they almost held the Rose Bowl alone almost held up playoff expansion. My God,
they did. They
did.
so
good. So they don't get their little precious Big Ten, Pac-12. So Texas.
Okay,
is 3.
Texas 3. Again, that's I'm all into that. I've told you at the top. I don't think you could put Bama in over Texas. I am totally in favor of Texas being there. They give them credit for scheduling Alabama in a home and home. They won the game on a home and home. Lost to Oklahoma, but then wound up winning the Big 12 regardless. Completely thumped the mullet in Oklahoma State yesterday. That game was not even remotely competitive. So now is the moment we're all waiting for.
The moment of truth.
The most highly anticipated in 10 years of the playoff.
And
we haven't had this
one.
much drama.
This
will
is
not
be a sweet goodbye for one team.
Oh, Reese Davis about to utter the 4th team. Oh, they're going to milk it some more. Okay, resume comparison. Alabama, Georgia, Florida State.
My
Again,
God.
I love you, Georgia, but you're not getting in. You just – it's not happening. This is an Alabama-Florida State comp. I don't think there's any question about that. I'd love to know if there's any of the 13 distinguished members of this committee that wind up voting for Georgia in the top 4. I don't think it's going to happen. I simply don't. So we'll see how much they drag this out. Will it be Alabama, or will, for the first time in 10 years, the SEC be completely shut out of the college football playoff, or will you leave an undefeated Power 5 team out of the playoff for the first time? Will you drop the number 1 team outside the top 4 in Georgia? I say yes. Will you select a team ranked outside the top 6 in Alabama to get in? We shall see.
Are the people from the Rose Bowl calling?
Whoa! Oh my God! Sorry, they flashed Georgia up. That was for 6. If they, I was about to fall out of my chair.
Whoa, dude! Oh, so they're 6th.
They're 6.
Oh,
so
they're announcing
really
6 and
milking it.
5. Oh man, God bless. I mean, why do that? I bet a bunch of dogs I bet they let out the first bark and then they're 6.
They won 29 in a row. They lost 1 game to Alabama that came down to the 4th quarter.
They're not the 6th best team.
Of course not. God. Of course not. Alabama 4. Bama's in. So Florida State, by process of elimination, will be 5.
I am so.
I knew it.
I knew it. One of my good friends coaches at Florida State, and I am sick for him right now. But do I agree with the decision? Probably.
Wow. Okay. So the RG3s and Booger McFarlands of the world and the Ocho guy, who's the guy that said that Caleb Williams should consider quitting playing when they lost a couple games, they all wanted Florida State in.
It's going to be a hell of an Orange Bowl, Florida State and Georgia. That kicks off 10 minutes before my wedding. On December 30th.
There you go.
All right.
So there you have it. Okay. Obviously, neither one of us with any inside information, but this is definitely how I thought it should go.
When I saw the Vegas odds, because what they didn't say odds to get in the playoffs. They said odds to win a national championship. And Bama was like plus 200, Michigan, and then it dropped. Georgia was like, Florida State was plus 5,000. Georgia was plus 5,000. Maybe trying to get some people to sucker bet on that. So that's what kind of tipped me off on it. That Bama was getting in because because Vegas,
Yeah, and you know what else Vegas has is what the odds would be Alabama versus say Florida State in a actual matchup, and Alabama would be a double-digit favorite. For that matter, so would Georgia. So Vegas has no emotion, has no allegiance, has no bias. That's why when you look at things on where do you want to get a truly, completely uninfluenced opinion, you go to Vegas. Now, it doesn't always mean because somebody is an odds-on favorite to win that's the better team. But, yeah, when you mentioned that to me in our meeting before the show, if you will, that's when I started to feel even more confident that Alabama was going to get the 4 seed. Because Vegas, I don't know how. I don't know if I want to know how, but they always seem to know. They always seem to, whether it's elections or whether it's sports, they always seem to know before anybody what's going to happen. So let's talk about the aftermath of this, JC. Obviously, Florida State fans are going to be irate, and I get it. I truly feel for you because this is unprecedented, and there's no question if Travis was healthy. And see, that gave the committee an out. Because even if Vegas was saying Bama's the better team than a healthy Florida State, by not having your starting quarterback, that gave an out. And I would also add this. This is the factor that you can never prove, you can never quantify, but I'm telling you, the most powerful and influential person in college football is Greg Sankey. If you watch Greg Sankey on game day, he made a Sesame Street analogy. Do you see this? He basically said, which one of these does not belong? Which one of these is different than the others? And his point was, we can sit here and chop up all these numbers and stats and trends and compare this to that. The fact of the matter is, what you had with Alabama and Georgia, and this goes back to my my tweet this morning in deference to what Nicole Auerbach, whatever her point was trying to illustrate, is that this is different. I mean, Alabama, Georgia versus the other Power 5 arguments out there, it simply is different. Maybe if Florida State annihilated Louisville, maybe that would have made a little bit more of a difference, but they didn't. They scored 16 points with a third-string quarterback. And Greg Sankey was just kind of putting everybody on notice. Before you get too hung up on no Power 5 undefeated team has ever missed the playoff before, just remember this is a different scenario that requires 13 brains in the room to understand the nuance of that. And I thought he delivered a message very stern and clearly on Saturday before the game, during the game, and after the game. And look, those 13 people, I don't know if they ever have any conversations with Greg Sankey, but I do think he moves the needle, and I think it certainly helps.
Absolutely. He's a great advocate for the league, and he's right. I mean, and look, okay, so you think Florida State wants out of the ACC now?
No.
I mean.
Well, but see, yes, I do, for a number of reasons, financially included. Okay, we're talking tens of millions of dollars more. But does anybody honestly believe that Florida State team was going to go undefeated if it had to go through? See, I hate to even put it this way. I don't know if they were good enough to go 13-0 in the SEC. My guess is no.
Agreed.
So when you when you have a 12-team playoff, all this is a moot point because all these teams we're talking about are getting in. What about number 13? Well, nobody's going to care about number 13. Seriously. No one's going to get all bent out of shape about number 13. Number 13 is going to be like a 10-2, 9-3 team. We're not going to sit there and waste valuable minutes crying foul over that. Just like the 35th at-large college basketball team that fails to make the big dance. You spend 5 minutes on it, then you move on. Same thing when the college football playoff expands to 12. But, yeah, I mean, you're going to continue to hear rumors about Florida State and Clemson getting out of the ACC, and this will only strengthen that desire to do so. With you on that. All right, we'll take a final timeout. We'll come back, wrap things up after this Selection Sunday installment of JC and Morgan.
Down here in the South, we don't always see eye to eye. While our taste in college football teams, or what sauce, if any, goes best on a rack of ribs, or what to mix with our Dixie vodka might be up for debate, we can all agree there's nothing better than a Southern tailgate. And like our favorite college teams, our ingredients come from small towns and big cities. They're grown in Southern soil, are crafted by Southern hands, and proudly represent the South in our backyard and beyond. So raise a glass of Dixie Southern Vodka to celebrate being made in America and raised in the South.
South Carolinians, this message is for you, as well as for people in Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee. If you think you may need work done to your roof or a new roof altogether, there's one simple name to remember: Elite Roofing and Restoration. South Carolina native Jeremy Johnson has been helping people in the South make sure they have the very best people checking on and building new roofs for over 25 years. Fully licensed, bonded, and insured, they provide the best service possible. Call or email today, 678-781-1998. That's 678-781-1998, or you can go to eliteroofingga.com. Schedule a no-hassle, free inspection today. Wind damage, hail damage, or just wear and tear. Don't settle for second best. Let Jeremy Johnson and Elite Roofing and Restoration take care of it all for you today.
Hey, this is Mike Morgan, and like many of you, I love staying active. It makes me feel better. It helps me enjoy a better life. But whether you're a world-class athlete or someone just keeping the dream alive like me, you'll want to make sure you have someone who can handle the injuries that are going to arise. That's where the world-renowned Dr. Michael Hatrack of Synergy Sports Wellness and Synergy Release Sports come into play. He's been my guy for nearly a decade, and he has served thousands of people, including over 400 NFL players, over a career that spans 47 years. Yeah, he's that good. And his staff's personalized biomechanical treatments and therapies can handle it all. Back pain, knee pain, shoulder pain. We all know the injuries, but few know the solutions the way Dr. Hatrack and his terrifically trained staff do. I've seen others. No one delivers the results the way they do. That's why people from all over the country come to Synergy's 2 Georgia locations, Buckhead and Alpharetta. Dr. Hatrack has trained a team of chiropractors in his proprietary technique that has been proven to yield life-changing outcomes from professional athletes to the Joe Schmoes of the world like, well, me. Check out the website to set up an appointment today, SynergyReleaseSports.com. That's Synergy with an S, ReleaseSports.com. You can also find a link for them on our website, JCandMorgan.com. Let the incredible staff at Synergy take care of you so you can reach your wellness goals. Oh, man. I spent those couple of minutes just hearing some of the, let's just say, less than thrilled talking heads about the selection. You shouldn't be surprised. If you're being honest with yourself, you shouldn't be surprised.
Doing? Did you text Danny Cannell?
I will.
We need to text him right now.
Yeah,
he comes on the show sometimes, and he's actually good guy. But I know he's not happy.
No, he's not.
He's got to be crushed.
And I've known Danny for a long time, and we worked together when he used to be at ESPN. Danny's a good guy, but
good, yeah.
I honestly, I think part of it's a little bit of an act. The rest of it is he's like much of America, and I don't blame much of America. You've got SEC fatigue. It's like enough is enough. And this was the one chance you could say, aha, you don't have the best of the best. You don't even have a team in a 14 playoff. And that, of course, didn't come down. So you have SEC fatigue, and you have Alabama fatigue, and you have Nick Saban fatigue. I get all that. But if you don't think Alabama right now is one of the top 4 teams with a really, really good resume, then you're lying to yourself. honestly. I mean, I think you're kind of kidding yourself on that.
The line has dropped for Georgia, Florida State in the Orange Bowl. Dogs are early 12-point favorite over the Noles. So.
That's about right. That's again without Jordan Travis. That's about right. There's no doubt about it. So yeah, it's not just Danny Cannell. There's a lot of just college football people, and I can't help but notice. I mean, none of them have any ties to the Southeast, to the SEC, to anything, and so they've got more fatigue than anything. But these are people that are objective to a point, but I think they secretly wanted an FSU over Alabama because they. Like, enough is enough already. And so you had a number of them saying, don't get your hopes up, SEC fans. You ain't making it. It's not happening. And they all now will pound the keyboard in frustration, but it is what it is.
I'm going to sound schizophrenic here a little bit, or like I'm changing, because I know I trashed the Rose Bowl earlier. I trashed the people that run it and their outsized influence on our sport. I do, however, love the Rose Bowl game. When the sun's setting on New Year's Day in the hills, and I don't know if the kickoff times have been announced yet or not, but I can't imagine a better, more beautiful setting in college football than Bama and Michigan in Pasadena on New Year's.
That's a bucket lister for me to actually go there and catch a game.
Yes.
All the Georgia fans got to do that a few years ago in a playoff run.
If you're Michigan, are you a little pissed you got Alabama?
Yeah, exactly. Ask Michigan again if we got the truth serum, right? What do they call that? What's that drug you put into somebody to get the?
I think it's called truth serum.
Is it a sodium pentanol or something?
So yeah, no, that's what they kill people with.
That's what they kill people with. Oh, jeez.
The death row.
Sorry, Mr. Morgan, we're going to have to fire you. You were supposed to give him the other drug. You just killed the man.
I'm an idiot. So
well, apparently I am too, because I'm killing people in hopes of getting the truth. So clearly I'm out of my league and jurisdiction. By the way, I did catch Greg McElroy, who also thought it was going to be Florida State. To his credit, I mean, he's an Alabama quarterback and just trying to be objective about it. Oh, now they're talking to Boo Corrigan. This will be just word salad. There'll be nothing of consequence to come out of his mouth, and he'll just try to. He hasn't made a cogent point yet. He'd make a terrific politician because apparently that's the requirement these days. If you look at what McElroy was talking about, the past champions, there's no question that does play a role. Like you saw it with your own eyes. Georgia winning the last two, Alabama winning in 2020, Clemson winning in 2018, Bama winning in 2017. You had three outliers of the 10 national champions. You had Clemson win it twice, and for my money, during that time, they fit the part of an SEC team. And you had Ohio State in 2014. But to continually watch SEC teams going back to the BCS era win it, Bama won it in 2012, 2011, Auburn won it in 2010 with Cam, Alabama in 2009, then Florida in 2008, then LSU in 2007, then Florida in 2006. You get the idea. Like, you can't just ignore what the history of the league has been and how much that is in the brain of everybody who follows the sport. And to actually have a 14 playoff without any SEC representation and without the preeminent program in college football the last 20 years who just beat Georgia with a SEC record 29 in a row, you were going to kick them aside for a team with a backup quarterback. That was going to be really hard to do. So the committee makes its decision. Boo will wax poetic, and that will put a bow on the 2023 installment, the last time we have to deal with a 14 playoff. Thank goodness. It'll be 12 next year, and it'll be so much better and so much more exciting. I don't know anybody. Well, that's not true. I know a few people still clinging to, I wish we had it where it was 2. I wish we could keep it where it was 4. God bless you guys, but the rest of us are so happy to get to 12.
I would rather, if they weren't going to expand it, I would have rather gone to what's called a +1. Yeah. Where you play all the bowls and then the top 2 teams.
Right.
You vote. Everybody votes again, and you play it off that way. 4, and I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I'm also inclusive in like representation and stuff of all the power conferences, and because all the conferences aren't created equally, blah blah blah. But this is the only year it's really been like, I hated to see those guys get left out. I could make a case for teams not being included, like Notre Dame a few years ago, but I have no idea who I would have put in over the Irish that year. And back to, I guess back to first one, Baylor and TCU. That was a brand thing, I think. But hey, Ohio State won the national title. So, and it's interesting because Ohio State's title in 2014, Mike, that is the only team outside of the below the Mason-Dixon line, right, that has won it since 2004.
You mean above?
Southern Cal did.
From above
the Mason-Dixon line. Florida State won it in 2013, Texas in 2005. We had Ohio State in 2014. No other northern schools have even scratched. So Ohio State's played for it, but they haven't won it. So it's going to be interesting to see, if that changes this year with Michigan, if that changes in the playoff era where you're going to have first-round games on campus sites. And so if you're, an Ole Miss and you got to go to Penn State for a first-round game, it's going to be cold.
Yeah.
The SEC bowls are all kind of in nice, warm, at least warmish weather locations. I mean, so that's part of the argument some of the northern folks make is, let them come up here in the cold. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
And I do love, because I was always, for my natural born life, when I was old enough to know what a playoff was and the mythical national championship of college football, what that was, I always wanted 8. And when I remember when the rumors started coming out about 12, I was like, 12? Why do we need 12? 8's enough. You don't want to diminish the regular season. But what 12 does is those conference championship games, people say, well, what is there to play for? Like Bama and Georgia were already in the playoff. Yeah, but only one of them gets the bye. The winner gets the bye. You know how big a bye is in football? I mean, that is a huge advantage. Huge. So I think they nailed it.
Well, and it's fair, too. I mean, we talk about Notre Dame, and they're not in a conference, so they don't have to play that conference championship game. They play 12 games, not 13. Well, they're always going to have to play in the first round because
that's right.
It's only conference champions that get the bye. So, yeah, and I think Notre Dame people are fine with that because a lot of years it's going to give them another home game in South Bend. I guess probably a team from the SEC,
Right.
So there's your conference championship game, Notre Dame. You got to win just like everybody else. So I think it's something else. Hi, Janet.
Yeah. Go ahead and send Janet an 8x11 with some of your Paco Rabanne cologne sprayed on it, JC. I think that Janet's she's saying, "Hi, handsome. Can you please send me a friend request?" So clearly, one of your groupies.
Yeah, we're gonna hook you right up with that, man. But yeah, so
make it tasteful. None of that swimsuit stuff now.
12's gonna be good if Timmy B is right and they go to 16, even better. Then everybody's playing for home field advantage in the first round. And yeah, so the games, people are, it's going to ruin the regular season. It's going to ruin it's not going to ruin it. It's going to make it to where more games actually matter. And
absolutely.
One game, it's going to give teams mulligans too. One game's not going to screw you up.
Well, and I look at like this year, Missouri and Ole Miss would have been in the playoff.
Yeah.
Missouri and Ole Miss are never getting in a 14 playoff. So their 10-win seasons don't feel like they're in vain. They actually feel like that high water mark leads to opportunity as opposed to leads to a random bowl game. Again, if you have reservations about the 12-team playoff now, I don't think you will once it gets cranked up. And if you're still yearning for the BCS, there's therapy. I can't help you. Don't take sodium pentanol like I am. No. So I might not be with you next week, JC.
Don't listen to pharmacist Mike.
I might have to cancel that Amazon order.
If he rolls up, in Walgreens, you see Mike's smiling face with a lab coat on. He's doing a commercial or something, guys. Don't ask him any advice.
They don't call me Kevorkian and Morgan for nothing.
Kevorkian and Morgan.
As we wrap things up here on a Sunday, as I've mentioned several times, the beauty of your background, JC, is that you keep up with all of the things. I know you're not a national recruiting analyst anymore, but you certainly know it, and you know all the things that go into the modern day of accumulation, I should say, of players, whether it's NIL or now the portal. And tomorrow, the portal is open for business, or as I like to call it, NFL free agency, except the players don't have to honor contracts like they do at the professional ranks. So what does that look like for all the people out there listening, for their favorite teams and what they can expect, and they're going to see all this news about this guy's leaving and this guy's coming? What do you make of the portal? What can fans expect?
Well, there's a lot of overreaction in a lot of fan bases about it. It's ruining the sport. I'm not going to care anymore, blah, 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 blah. And that's all well and good. I get it. It's part of, but you have to understand, people have to understand that emotion and those over-the-top reactions are really what makes college football great, because people are very, very emotional about the sport, probably more so than other sports. That's not to say pro sports don't get emotionally heated and stuff at times, but and they certainly do, like here in Chicago and Philadelphia, places like that. But it's kind of every town USA with college, and I get it. But if you're a fan of a school and you care about them winning, you kind of sometimes have to look at the bright side and see it as an opportunity. Players are leaving every school. Players are going to leave Georgia and Alabama. Players are going to leave Florida State. Florida State's going to get players. Ohio State will lose some guys. It's just a fact of life, and it's probably going to be a player that a group of fans, or even all the fans, really like and thought we're going to have great days for their teams. But you have to also look at it and say, well, this is a chance too to get help on your roster and transform your roster and clean up some things if you had a bad year through the acquisition process. So that's it's something that I think the reaction to it, Mike, is because it's new and we're all kind of getting used to it. And it's very, very jarring when you see a player that was one of your better players walk out the door. Mm-hmm. But it's not necessarily if they leave, it's how you replace them and what are you going to do next year. And in college football, we've got to start getting used to the transition. Our basketball friends have been living this life since before the portal opened, since before there was a portal. And that sport very much is year to year at this point. I don't think football will ever be like 100% year to year or 80 year. You're not going to flip 80% of your roster every season, but you're going to have 10 to 15% attrition and 10 to 15% addition, and that's just kind of how it's going to be.
And nobody's immune to it. If you watch the game last night, Atlanta, you couldn't help notice making some really big plays was a former Georgia wide receiver, Jermaine Burton.
Yeah.
And then on his way out, he basically flipped off. I don't know why. You're a California kid. Georgia was nothing but good to you, but he decided to kind of show his rear end and just was like going out of his way to stick it to Bulldog Nation. But my original point was that if programs like Georgia and Alabama can lose key players, anybody can lose a key player.
Yeah, Jermaine Burton I thought that was kind of, that and Ray Davis's decision I thought were two kind of just because I would think some guys would have more respect for the team that they just left than to just go straight up the road. Especially, and those two are both California kids. Ray Davis is from California. He goes right up the road to Kentucky after giving Vandy hope, which now there's no hope there. But so I don't know. But more egregious was Jermaine Burton winning the freaking national championship. And it's just like he said, well, I'm going to drive home and think about it. And he just pulled off his Tuscaloosa. It was like, hey, I'm here. Hey, guys, what's up? We just beat you guys. And he's a good player. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But, man, oh, man, I just I
And the best
those
receiver
are the
for
types
Texas?
of things I'm not a fan of. So, the receiver for Texas.
I was going to say the best receiver for Texas is a former Georgia kid, right?
Yeah. Smith or whatever. Is it Smith?
No, Mitchell.
Mitchell. A.D. Mitchell. Yeah, and they got a lot of former Alabama receivers on their
right.
former Alabama
So I mean, it's the wild West. Like if you think you're the only team that lost a guy, like you're not. It's just going to happen. It's startling to think where we are in terms of quarterback free agency, and again, I'll use that term. The amount. It used to be like if you were a backup and we went through 2 cycles. It used to be like, speaking of Florida State. You didn't start, no matter how good you were, till you were a redshirt junior. That's when Charlie Ward, Heisman Trophy winner, first got to play. You just sat on the bench for 3 years. And that was pretty common at the elite programs. Well, then that changed to, well, if I don't play as a freshman, guess what? I'm out the door, and I'll sit out a year, and then I'll go somewhere else. Well, now, guys that played, that started every game, that were good players, that got along with the coaching staff, nah, I can make an extra $150,000 here, so I'm going to put my name in the portal and leave. That's true free agency. There's nothing to do with anything else. It's all about the Benjamins.
And at that position, you're going to see it every single year. You wait.
Yeah.
That's the one spot that's going to be really programs are going to be more dependent on the portal for that position than just about any other. Michael Alford, the AD from Florida State, releases a statement. The consequences of giving into a narrative of the moment are destructive, far-reaching, and permanent, not just for Florida State, but college football as a whole. The argument of whether a team is the most deserving or best is false equivalence. It renders the season up until yesterday irrelevant and significantly damages the legitimacy of the playoff. The 2023 Seminoles are the epitome of a total team. To eliminate them for a chance to compete is an unwarranted justice and shows complete disregard and disrespect for their performance and accomplishments. It's unforgivable.
How much you want to bet that was written last night? There's no way he just came up with that off the top of his head. I mean, it's very eloquent, very flowery language. That's something he was prepared for that. And look, I expect that. I get it. Booger McFarland calls picking Alabama over Florida State a travesty to the sport, quote unquote. No, It's not a travesty to the sport. They took the team. Again, the language is the best 4 teams, and right now, Alabama is one of the best 4 teams. Agree to disagree. There's no if Florida State got in, I certainly wouldn't call it a travesty to the sport. That's a little bit hyperbole.
No,
to say the
me
least.
neither. Yeah, Alabama probably. I mean, Alabama probably.
Nick Saban didn't even politic. Did you catch the post-game interview? I mean, Nick didn't. He said, "Look, we did all we can do," and blah, blah. That was about as milquetoast as a coach trying to get into a playoff in a controversial year can be. Kirby did a lot more politicking than Nick did, but yeah, they weren't going to sit there and bellyache if they didn't get in. But they got in. All right. In closing, JC, I've got 2 things. I got my to-do list is threefold today. I'm calling a college basketball game involving Mississippi State. I'm calling that from my house today. We've got a few of those left before conference play. I've got to vote. My Heisman Trophy ballot is due tomorrow. I never vote before Championship Saturday. Honestly, I think the decision is pretty easy after what I saw this weekend, in contrast to what I saw all year long out of one particular individual. And I'll give you a clue. He's not in the playoff. Number two, and it's going to be, they're never unanimous, but the guy who wins it, I think it's going to be pretty, it's going to be a high percentage of votes for this particular player. That's all I can say. We're not legally bound, but we're not supposed to say anything more than that.
Sure.
I also have to vote on Coach of the Year. That's
hard. National Coach of the Year?
National 2023 Home Depot Coach of the Year. I've been voting on this now for 4 or 5 years. I'll just give you the nominees real quick. Jason Candle of Toledo, Kurt Signetti of James Madison, Kalen DeBoer of Washington, Eli Drinkwitz of Mizzou, Jed Fish of Arizona, Willie Fritz of Tulane, Mike Norvell of FSU, Barry Odom, your boy, of UNLV, Willie Simmons of Florida A&M, and Kirby Smart of Georgia.
Nick Saban's not on there?
No, he's not. Now, this list doesn't mean I can't vote for him.
Job.
Yeah, this list came out before the games yesterday. It doesn't mean I can't write him in. I'll tell you who I'm leaning toward in full, just because I don't think I have the same gag order here. I'm leaning toward Kalen DeBoer.
That's the first person that popped in my mind. And, you look at that Washington program, and they've been kind of on their way back since Sark went in, started recruiting well, left after a 500 record. Peterson took it to a certain level. But this guy, and you start thinking about, like, this guy followed Steve Sarkisian and freaking Chris Peterson. I mean, and I know Jimmy Lake was the interim or whatever for 2 years, whatever. That was a mistake. But he's won everywhere he's been. And he's coached at some places that, you probably got to get on long bus rides and you got to wash the uniforms and stuff. He's not a guy that was born on third base and thinks he hit a triple.
Yeah.
I like guys like that because I think their teams play hard and they know what they're doing and they know how to adapt. And I could make a strong case for him. I can make a strong case for Saban too, just because he got them out of that, whatever the hell the struggles they were having. And they're still not dominant, but he's just winning. And I think he's having a blast winning close because, hell, it's something new. I mean, you probably get bored blowing everybody out all the time. But, like I've never seen Kirby Smart as happy and excited as when he was down to South Carolina at halftime this year. And he walked in, he's like, all right, let's go. Because I think he knows that's good for them. Now you have to get up and you're going to lose if you don't get out there and play. So those guys like that. But, yeah, dude, DeBoer, to me, you go undefeated. You survived some close games on the road. You kept winning. You got in a funk for a couple of games where you didn't really play all that well, but you kept winning. And you survived the Apple Cup. And then beating Oregon twice like that, even though they let Oregon come back on them, that's an accomplishment. And like I said, when you look at that program and kind of how they've ascended slow-ish or whatever through the years, you look at who he replaced, and he's taking it next level. That's a coach. That's a good coach. That's a great coach.
Yeah, and I would also I had to check. I think we do a first, second, and third, just like the Heisman. I can tell you this: Jed Fish will be somewhere on my ballot of Arizona.
Yeah.
They did a
Jed
hell of a
Fish,
job.
Barry Odom, Eli Drinkwitz, all those guys.
Yeah, they all did.
Really, really
there's a lot of good names on that list. Quite frankly, I think that's a lot harder to vote for this year than the Heisman Trophy.
No kill zone, man.
No kill zone.
There
you go. You still.
If they'd have won the other night, maybe I don't know. So.
Oh, I would have got my New Mexico State gear in the mail. I'm still waiting on my Jackrabbits. All I can do now is honor them with the stadium and the backdrop here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, thanks to everybody tuning in. We're not stopping. I have to remind everybody of that every year. We this is year round. In case you haven't noticed, like the demand for college football talk, it just doesn't stop. In fact, we get to have some really great guests on in the quote-unquote off-season because we're not so overwhelmed with the top stories of the day. And we'll get back to that as well. So we'll be back with you next week and the week after that and so on and so forth. Also want to thank Chief Sports Network. I see a lot of the ITG folks in chat row. That'll be Monday through Friday at its normal time, 11 to 2. There's also some other great new shows added to that if you check out the Chief Sports app. So make sure to do that as that continues to grow and expand, as I like to call it, the Jamie Bradford burgeoning empire that is Chief Sports. And as always, thanks to our producer, Phil Molinax, working this into his busy schedule as well, doing a great job. And again, hope everybody had a terrific holiday and looking forward to a magnificent bowl season and college football playoff. That'll do it for us today. The first ever time we've done a live selection show. That was a lot of fun. Didn't know what to expect. I nearly passed out on the ground when I saw Georgia pop up when I thought it was in the 4 slot instead of the 6.
Wow.
At any rate, have a great rest of your Sunday, everybody, and we'll see you next time on JC and Morgan.